Hi, everyone. It's Andrea from the Family Life Center. I'm here today with my friend Rabina from the CFSEU in Surrey, and she's going to tell us a little bit about her role with the CFSEU and why she is here today.
Hi everyone, my name is Rabina Kang, and as mentioned, I'm from the Combined Forces Special Enforcement Unit, which is actually one of the largest integrated policing units in Canada, where we make up of over 400 members and civilian members that work together to target, enforce, investigate, and prosecute the highest organized crime group individuals and groups in our province. And our section is very unique in that we provide gang intervention and exiting supports for individuals that are gang entrenched. And we will be talking a little bit more in detail about our program that I coordinate along with my colleague, who you'll get to hear from later on.
Awesome. Thanks, Rabina. Okay, so we've heard from Rabina, and now I'd like to introduce Janet. And Janet is also from the CFSEU, and she'll tell you a little bit about her role as well.
Thanks, Andrea. My name is Janet Northrup. I'm a constable with the RCMP, and I am working in partnership with CFSEU in the Gang Intervention and Exiting Program. I am one of the members that works in partnership with the civilian case managers in supporting individuals that want to get out of the gang lifestyle or are extremely vulnerable to going down that road. And so that is my role in the program.
Awesome. So we're just going to take a bit of time, and Rabina and Janet are going to sit, and I'm going to ask them a few questions about the gang lifestyle and what that looks like here, probably more specifically in the Lower Mainland, although I'm not sure if you can answer from a provincial perspective or how that will kind of go, but we will just move forward with that. Okay, so our first question for you guys today is, what is a gang?
Well, that's dependent on your view. So from a policing world perspective, the criminal code dictates the definition of a gang. And what that looks like is 3 or more people that come together that commit criminal offenses for financial gain. So that's the criminal code. But in the world that we work in, it's a different picture for the clientele that we work with.
For sure. Some young people may not even identify belonging to a gang. And so when we do the work that we do with those that are gang entrenched, we look at the different types of activities that they may participate in. So that can include things like drug trafficking, whether it's local, across the province, or even across the country. That could also mean trafficking, weapons, and as well as individuals. It could mean working with other individuals to commit in crimes such as breaking, entering, fraud, money laundering. And another trend that we're starting to see more and more of these days is the sexual exploitation of young women and girls that is happening by a lot of these individuals that are gang involved.
So I'm curious how youth are generally being recruited at this time, specifically young females, to participate in gangs. And so just wondering if you could describe a little bit about what that looks like in real life at this point.
What we're experiencing with the clientele that we've been getting, it had originally started with girls being brought on by boyfriends. Boyfriends would lavish them with things from Louis Vuitton purses to getting their hair and nails done, big bucks things, paying for their cell phones, things like that, draw them in. And then they would start to use them. They have purses. And nowadays, well, unlike me, most girls have purses that are huge. Mm-hmm. And so they'll use them as what we call as a mule. And they'll hold the drugs, weapons, anywhere from like bear spray knives, firearms. They'll use them for that. Or if they're stopped and they have drugs on them, unfortunately, we're seeing more and more young girls putting them in their private areas to hide them from being caught by police. So asking them to do things that would be degrading to, when we talk about it, and when we think about something like that, like somebody asked us to do that, our response to them would be no blinking way. But at this point, their boyfriend's drawn them in, lavished them, made them feel like they owe them something, and now they feel an obligation. And then it kind of snowballs from there. But we're also seeing other ways girls are coming in now, right, Ravina?
Yeah, for sure. Social media. I mean, what young person nowadays doesn't have, your Snapchat, your Instagram, and sadly, these social media apps are being used to recruit young women and girls into the gang lifestyle. We're seeing instances where someone that's already involved may take videos of their lifestyle. Maybe they're partying, there's drugs and alcohol, or maybe they're dining out in expensive restaurants. They're showing a lifestyle, and when they post this for their peers to see, what they want to see is, hey, who's gonna take that bite? Who's gonna message me? Who's gonna say, hey, that looks cool, I wish I could do that? Because for them, they know, okay, this is gonna be my next target. So social media, unfortunately, is being used to recruit individuals. And there is another sad reality to this as well, where people are being exploited by social media. And what I mean by that is, and this is more so true with our young women, is that, when other people will, friends and peers will take and throw parties and invite young women. There have been a lot of cases where young women are drugged or given a lot of alcohol, and there are cases where some of these young women are sexually abused, and it's recorded, and then they're threatened that, hey, if you don't do this, if you don't take this package here, or if you don't do this for us, well, look, this video is going to be shared with everyone you know. And so that fear is instilled in that young person, and they're left feeling that they have no choice but to do what these individuals do. And that is a sad reality. And we don't want to scare you young women that are watching this video. This is for us to educate you so that you're aware. Because, hey, let's face it, you're going to be invited to parties. You're going to be invited to hang out. And sometimes we just need to be a little bit more mindful and ask questions like, who's going to be there? What's happening? Because this is about your safety. It's really easy for these individuals to suck a person in and basically coerce them into doing things for them that they don't want to do themselves. And who's going to get in trouble for it? And who's going to face the consequences? It's unfortunately going to be you. So just keep some of those things in mind and watch your safety.
And that's a big one.
Yeah.
The partying. Like Rubina is absolutely right with the parties, because as a teenage girl, you have an older guy interested in you, old enough to maybe get some alcohol. He provides it free, provides drugs free to entice them. And they get drawn in because as a teenage girl, who doesn't want to get free stuff? And they experiment. That is part of growing up. But what happens when they're not in a safe environment and they don't know where it's coming from or why it's being offered for free, that's where they become even more vulnerable. Because somebody has to pay for that stuff.
Yeah.
Some way.
Yeah. So I think this next question I have might be a little bit shocking for some of the people who are watching this today, but can you give us an idea of how young the girls are that are actually being targeted at this time to be recruited for gang life or sexual exploitation through social media and other means?
Yeah. If you had asked us this question 10 years ago, we would have said, oh, in your mid-20s. Today, as sad as it is, we're seeing young girls ages 11, 12 that are getting involved. They're being recruited. They are recruiting other youth. So we are seeing that decline in that age of engagement in criminal gang activities.
Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit about what the roles are that girls and women are playing in gang lifestyle at this time?
For sure. So, Janet talked a little bit about this earlier that traditionally, young women and girls were often seen as the wives or the girlfriends of gang members. We didn't really hear a lot about young women and girls actively taking on roles in a gang, but that's changing a lot, especially over the last few years, where we are definitely seeing an increase in the types of activities that young women and girls are partaking in when it comes to criminal gang activities. So we have women that are actually participating in drug trafficking. They're, like Janet mentioned, they're often the passenger in a vehicle holding drugs, holding weapons, and hiding both drugs and weapons to evade police, and potentially avoid any charges if they are caught. They are recruiting other young people to engage in gang activities with them or with the group that they're working with. Other young women and girls are sadly recruiting other girls for the purposes of sexually exploiting them as well, because oftentimes these young girls are being sexually exploited themselves, sadly. And again, like I mentioned earlier, transporting weapons and not only just holding them locally across the province, across Canada. We do also see that young women and girls are often being used to participate in some of the illegal money laundering or credit card theft activities, because the individuals at the top of their gang group, they don't want to get caught. So they know that, hey, let me recruit young people to do the dirty work for me, because the chances of them getting charged and having to go to jail are low. And even if they do get caught and end up in jail, they're not going to do as much time as, say, an adult would. And what's happening is a lot of these young people, they're willing to take that heat on because they're being told, hey, do this for me, because if I get caught, I'm going to have to go to jail for a long time. Whereas if you get caught, I guarantee you have protection inside and you're not going to do a lot of time in jail. Mm-hmm. So those are some of the activities. And I think what the important message around this is that women and girls are getting more and more involved in criminal gang activities. And this is something that we didn't see, 5-10 years ago, where traditionally they were seen as the girlfriends or the wives of gang members.
Okay. One of the other things that we're seeing even more so now too is violence. Mm. The girls are participating in violence far more than they ever did. Mm-hmm. Girl on girl, just if they've been told to go do something, send a message, we're seeing more of that, whereas we didn't before.
Okay. So I know we did talk a little bit about how some of the male influences would be pulling girls into gang violence. What would it look like for another girl to be targeting and approaching other girls, like within the school or social media? What sort of, maybe just an example of what that could possibly look like?
Attachment.
Yeah, for sure. And I think also, just like with the guys, these young girls, they look for those vulnerable girls. Someone that perhaps is being bullied in school, someone that may not be academically progressing, or someone that they know has that reputation where maybe they come from a broken family or they don't have the economic means. That makes it a lot easier for them to target these individuals, because they can show the lures of the lifestyle to that person and recruit them that way. It's also about providing that sense of protection and family that oftentimes these young people use to recruit other individuals.
Okay. And one of the things that I saw when I worked in Langley, I was in the youth unit for 12 years and I worked with high-risk youth. One of the biggest draws was girls coming in and inviting other girls to the parties. And Rabina talked about this a little bit earlier, but that was the way to engage them, because all the girls wanted to feel like they belonged. And that, they invited me to this party. And the girl's telling me, so it can't be that, it's got to be okay, right? But what that girl is actually doing is finding basically a group of girls to have at the party for the guys.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't know that.
Mm-hmm.
So they're given free booze, free drugs at these parties. And then, like Rabina said, this is where they're getting exploited without recognizing it before it happens. And that's the scary part, because they all want to belong. They all want to kind of test the waters and experiment without basically what would like their body armor is protection, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I saw that regularly in Langley with the girls. That was one of the bigger things that happened, was the invitation to the girl parties.
Okay. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your work currently with the girls that may be connected with the CFSEU, and sort of how many and the areas that they're coming from here, because I do understand CFSEU is located in Surrey at head office.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, just a little info about that would be awesome.
Yeah. So the gang intervention and exiting program, what we do is we provide intervention services to those individuals that are gang entrenched. They're engaging in gang activities. They haven't quite put up their hand yet to say, I want to get out of gangs, but they may have a family member or a community worker or some school personnel that's concerned about them, and who will reach out to us and say, hey, look, I'm dealing with a youth, or I think my child might be gang involved, and we want some help to get them out. And so our team, which is very unique, one of a kind in Canada, our team consists of civilian case managers and police officers that work together to support these individuals. So our team works with anyone in the Lower Mainland. Even though we are located out of the Green Timbers headquarters in Surrey, like I said, we do provide services to anyone in the Lower Mainland over the age of 12 to try to help these individuals get to a place where they are ready to leave the lifestyle. Now, on the other hand, we also provide exiting supports. So this is for those individuals that don't require an intervention, but they are, for whatever circumstance, ready to get out of the gang lifestyle, and they reach out to us, or someone reaches out to us on their behalf to say, hey, look, I'm done with this. I need to change my life around, but I don't know how to do it. Can you help me? And so our team is able to help them with a variety of different services. For example, we can pay for clinical counseling, because as we know, most often individuals that get involved in the gang lifestyle, it often happens as a result of trauma from, either their childhood or their adolescence. And on top of that, they also experience a lot of trauma being involved in the lifestyle. So it's really important to unpack that and deal with that. So we're able to provide them with clinical counseling, and as well as those individuals that they identify as being in their support group. So for example, family members. We also help them by getting their tattoos removed or covered up, because sometimes people have gang tattoos or other tattoos that may be a barrier for employment or housing. We also help them with education and employment services. So say, for example, we're working with an individual who hasn't finished school. We can work with the school district to help them integrate back in and complete the courses that are required. Or if they need some type of employment programming, we can pay for some certification types of programs. What's great about our team is that, like I mentioned, we do have civilian case managers and police officers that work together. And so a lot of that ongoing emotional and practical support is provided by the team, because as we know, making that decision to get out of gang life, it's extremely difficult, and it's a process, and there's a lot of ups and downs. And so there's a constant, there's the constant back and forth between safety planning and riding that emotional roller coaster with the individual to get them to a place where they're feeling happy and healthy about their life and their lifestyle.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
Yeah, it's really for the girls. It is unique in how we approach them compared to the guys. I believe we've had 4 that have been successful in the program,
Mm-hmm.
and we're actively working with just over I think 10 or
Yeah.
11 now.
Yeah.
I think we actually just got one. And so out of these 10 that we're working with right now, they come from all kinds of backgrounds.
Mhm.
There's no barrier to, like, it could be socioeconomic, so, financially difficult situation, but it could be from a family that finances aren't an issue. It could be trauma in the family. And so all the girls that we are working with right now are very unique. And our program is such that each one is approached that way. There is an assessment that we utilize with our clients to help better get an idea in the key, what areas do we call them? Domain, that's it. That's her domain. In understanding, like, the assessments give us a clearer picture in how we can best help our clients. So it's very individualized. And it's long term. We have had some clients almost 3 years now. So it's for the clients to understand, we're not going to just give them a support and go, okay, we're done.
Yeah.
This is long-term commitment. As long as they want us, because it is a voluntary program, we're there for them. And we're people that understand the life that they were involved in, because a lot of times family members don't have a grasp on the experience that that person may have had when they were involved in that gang lifestyle. Whereas our team, our unit, has a very clear understanding of what they may have experienced. Although each individual person's experience is different, we've seen and heard and experienced a lot as a team. So they have us as that, as Rabina said, that moral support to be able to know when they call us, we're that ear for them, and we'll get what they're talking about.
Right. So there isn't this sense of always having to explain everything, because you guys are already familiar with a lot of what's going on behind the scenes. And so you wouldn't be needing to seek that re-traumatization of having to retell your story over and over again.
For sure.
Right? Yeah. So I know we've talked about some of those, I won't call them, well, I want to call them perks, but the purses and the jewelry and the makeup and the nails and the hair and the clothes, I'm sure. So all of these things that lots of young girls want access to and some do not have access to. But what is really the reality? So you get all of this great, amazing stuff that you can show off on the outside, but let's talk about what's going on behind the scenes a little bit.
So I have a saying that it may be free at the beginning, but the cost at the end could ultimately be their life. And for some girls, it has been. And it is the highest price to pay for something in the long run. That's the reality of it. It comes at a very, very large price.
And we, when with the girls and the young women that we work with, we hear it all. They're physically abused, they're sexually abused, emotionally abused, and as you can imagine, that can leave lifelong scars. Not only that, a lot of these individuals, they go into the lifestyle thinking that they're going to make easy money, they're going to make a lot of money, and while there is some truth to that, the reality is that you may have money, but you never really keep it. You cannot, they get ripped off, or they're set up and owed a drug debt. They're working long hours. So that's another interesting thing, because, people have this conception that, we'll be working for a few hours and I'll make a few $100s. No, these individuals are working 12 to 14 hour shifts. They're driving around in vehicles. Sometimes they're riding around in a bike. And when they're riding around in a vehicle, drug trafficking, because a lot of these individuals are younger, they're often with older individuals that have drug addictions. that may have other issues with them that can be a harm to the individual. And, just putting themselves out there, they're putting themselves at risk for violence from other gang rivals, which is huge. And the other sad consequence of this lifestyle is that they get disengaged from their family, they're disengaged from their positive peers, and they get deeper and deeper into this hole that pulls them into a lifestyle of violence, abuse, and there's nothing positive about it. And we often hear from individuals that, they say my crew said that they would have my back and they said that they would protect me, and that is not true. That is not the case. And for some it takes a little bit of time to realize this, some not, but that's something that whether you're at the bottom or you're at the top, that's something that is definitely a reality. Nobody has each other's back. Everyone's in it for themselves, for that money.
And it's not just us as, police officers and case managers saying that. There was actually an article 2-3 weeks ago that Kim Boland put out. And in that article, she also interviewed 2 of our successful clients. And one of them was very clear about they're not your friends.
Yeah.
This is a business and it's a dog-eat-dog world.
Yeah.
If you're in their way for them to make more money, they will find a way to remove you.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if you're a young woman, a young man, the game has changed. Whereas before you would seldomly hear about, women and girls being victims of violence, but that's happening more and more.
Okay. So I know, Rabina, you actually had touched on a little bit about the gang intervention and exiting program. So I just wanted to come back to that. Maybe ask for a little bit more information. If anyone that's watching today wanted to connect with you or wanted some more information, maybe they want to start online or or they themselves maybe know somebody who is in trouble and want to talk to somebody just generally anonymously. Is that a possibility at your center and with your program?
Yeah, for
So
sure.
maybe kind of take them through like a process of somebody, how they get us, and then kind of what will happen for them. So that they have an idea.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
for
awesome.
sure.
Yeah.
So like Janet mentioned earlier, the program is voluntary. So this isn't something that would be mandated by, say, for example, a probation officer or whatnot. And anybody can access this program. We have a helpline and a email proxy that is widely used by individuals to get in touch with us. And we will share that with you so that you can share it with the audience. What's also great about this is that young people and anyone in general is often wondering, well, okay, this is a police program. Does that mean I'm going to have to share information? And our program is such that we want to help people. So we're not there to collect information. We're not there to solicit people into becoming informants. That is not our goal. We have had situations where people do get in touch with us and they themselves say, hey, look, I have some stuff I want to get off of my chest. I want to talk. Can you connect me with the right people? And we help facilitate that. But we are very clear in drawing that line to say, look, don't share anything with us because our role is to help you get out of the lifestyle. That doesn't mean that you need to share information with us to get help. So if someone contacts us and they want to remain anonymous, that's totally okay because they may not be ready to get help. Maybe they're just doing some digging and want to get some information about what it is that we do and what we can provide. So calling our helpline would be a great resource. But when someone is ready to get that support from us, or if there's a parent, for example, that's giving us a call, we have a back-end process that we go through to make sure that this person's eligible for our program. It would be safe to take this individual on and to figure out what kind of a plan we would need to put in place to work with this individual. What's great is that when we do go and meet with individuals, the police officers that are on the team, they will go in plain clothes. So they often do not show up in uniform because we understand that that can be intimidating, but also for confidentiality, right? In case there's neighbors or people around that may be watching or lurking, we want to make sure that we keep the confidentiality of our clients a priority, and also maintaining their safety, because if there's gang members nearby watching, well, we don't want them to think that, oh, this person is ratting us out because they're talking to a cop. So we do take all of those different uh, aspects into consideration when we go and meet with clients, whether it's at their home, whether it's in the community, at a coffee shop, wherever they feel safe meeting with us.
Okay, awesome. That's great. And so once they've done an intake or have agreed to become part of the program, working with a case manager and wanting to move forward in exiting, then what does that look like? So what does working with a case manager look like? Is it a weekly connection? Is it as needed?
Yeah, it's really as
intense?
needed.
As needed.
Some individuals require a lot more intense support. Could be daily, of every other day. We are unfortunately in COVID times, so we're not able to see our clients on a regular basis, but we are able to, of course, keep in contact with them over the phone or video calling. So that's been really great. But in pre-COVID times, we make every effort to meet with our clients on a regular basis, not only in person, but over the phone. Because like I mentioned, there's a lot of ups and downs, right? And things may be going really good for a while, but then a crisis hits. And that's sometimes when more support is needed. And with the case manager and as well as the police officer assigned to the case, really, like Janet mentioned, we have an assessment tool. And that assessment tool guides this case manager to be able to develop a plan for this individual. It'll look at what are some of the risk factors that are pulling this person into the gang lifestyle, because then that'll give us an idea of what types of services we need to implement to reduce those risk factors. So let's just say, for example, an individual participates in gang activities because they needed to fulfill their own drug addiction. Right.
Yeah.
So we know that is a priority issue that we will need to work on with the individual. So getting them linked up with drug and alcohol programming or treatment would be a priority, because if that's their main pull, then we know that we need to get supports heavily with that aspect. And like Janet said, each case is very unique. It's very different because every individual has their own pathways into the gang lifestyle. So with the work of with the case manager and the assessment tool and the individual, it's really important that an individualized, unique case management plan is developed that the individual has bought into, because they're a part of it. They're a part of creating it.
Okay, and maybe just a little information too about the level of safety that is, encompassed around the individual, because I can imagine that somebody coming forward that's involved in gang life, like that's going to be first of all, that's a huge step. But second of all, like just hearing what you're describing today, like I'd be scared. I'd be really scared that someone was going to find out. So yes,
absolutely natural response. And if you didn't have that, I'd wonder. We go in depth into safety planning right from the get-go. Like Rabina said, we sit down with the case managers, and depending on the level of risk, once we've done all our background information, because once a client comes in and is deemed eligible for the program, we do background research and all the information that we can gather. Like if it was a referral from like a youth worker or social worker, we gather as much information as possible, plus what we have access to as police officers, and the civilian case managers have access as well. We build a background for our potential client. And we then sit down and assess, where do we feel this risk is at? Because we have individuals that may only be associated to a gang associate who's associated to a gang member. but their vulnerability, their risk factor is high to being drawn in. So their safety risk may be fairly low, but we have clientele that are also very high up
Mhm.
in gang hierarchy. So as a gang member. So then we sit down based on that risk assessment and we plan. And we have a variety of sources available to be able to plan safe meets. And so if we have to have Overwatch, well, do we need one officer for Overwatch or do we need 2 or 3?
Mhm.
Depends on where we're meeting. So all of this is discussed and planned ahead of time. And we have that conversation with the client because we can plan as much as we want to keep them safe. But if they don't feel safe where we're going,
Yeah.
then we got to drop that and think of another one
Mhm.
because they need to have a say. So much of these clients, their say has been taken away from them.
Mhm.
So we need to be able to empower them in getting control back of their life. So as long as we can assess the risk factor, if they choose an area where they feel more comfortable, and we can say, you know what, we can safely assess that and have members in place to keep everybody safe, ourselves included, as well as the client, then yeah, let's go for it. If we can't, it's easy enough to have a conversation with the client and say, okay, well, you know what? I have some concerns about this. So let's think of another plan together.
Mhm.
Bottom line is our safety, being our civilian case managers and ourselves, because they're not armed. We are. So we have to take that into consideration as well as our client's safety. So it is probably the biggest factor when we are looking at going to meet the client, that we take this seriously.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I just wanted to ask too about young girls being recruited at the parties, at the school, the targeting. How often is it that a young girl will know that they're even associated with a gang? Like, does that, like, for some of them, are they doing this work based on, what boyfriend says, but they actually don't know that boyfriend is associated with XYZ?
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
so then all of a
For
sudden, I'm just curious about that because obviously they won't know that their lives are at risk or that their safety is at risk until they say no,
Mhm.
right? And so what does that sort of look like in the gang?
Yeah, that happens more often than not. Unless they've been with that boyfriend and the boyfriend's all, the macho, like, this is what I'm doing, this is who I'm associated with, watch out for me, I'm connected, that kind of discussion. And for some girls, that initial draw to that adrenaline rush happens. And then when they do get involved, for them, it's too late. But this is where we talk about trying to have preventative measures in place to be able to recognize that maybe that decision to go to that party is not so good. I know this girl, everybody says she's the in crowd, she's cool, it's free booze, a free party, I'm being invited. Think about it. Like, take a moment to think about it. And really, is that a place that you want to be? Because that's a place where control is going to be taken out of your hands. And this is where programs like this, that can do the preventative measures for these girls, like, ask those questions. Be wary of the free stuff. Be wary of getting in the vehicles when they go, well, it's just a bunch of dope. It's not a big deal. Well, it's still against the law to sell it. It's still against the law for people under the age of 19. There's still that criminal aspect to it. And so if they're willing to break that law, they're willing to put you in that position too, which will compromise your safety. So it's getting them prepared and able to think on their feet and think for themselves. It's the vulnerable girls, it's the toughest because they're looking for those attachments because they're not getting it in a healthy way.
Yeah. And I think for, for the young girls that aren't aware, like Janet mentioned, if something's too good to be true, it probably is, right?
Yeah.
And so, if you are being, friended by a girl that would have never spoken with you before, or, if you're being invited to things that maybe you weren't to before, just question that. But on the flip side of it, I also think that, when you have individuals that, for example, are living in the same group home, or they're attending at-risk programming together, or, they're in custody together, it just makes it a lot easier for these individuals to group up and then engage in criminal activities. And so, yes, you will have those group of individuals that may not have any clue of who they're engaged with, who may be the people that they're working with, who they're connected to, because oftentimes young people have no idea who they're feeding into. But then you will have those groups that know, okay, what we're doing is not right. We are engaging in gang activities or illegal activities, and they still make that choice to continue for whatever reason.
Right. Okay. And I do want to just take a moment too, because our Brave program is very specific to reaching vulnerable or at-risk youth. And so some of that would include homelessness or group home living, foster care, or street entrenched. The program is really designed to empower and reach that category of young people in our community. But I just want to ask and hear from you about the reality of the fact that this really could happen to anyone, because we have girls we have girls that are going to attend Brave who may not fall into a high at risk or high vulnerability in our community, and may think that this is sort of not within their circle. And so maybe just talking I don't know, a little bit into that, just to say, just for that education purpose, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I can share that, there is no cookie cutter, solution, first of all, and there is no cookie cutter, I guess you could say, individual that can get involved in the lifestyle, right? So, I mean, I can share examples with you. We've gone into multi-million-dollar homes where the kids involved in gang activities. Both parents are in the picture. The kids have graduated from high school. They're driving BMWs. The parents, they're clearly well off, but they still got involved, right? And then you've got the individuals that maybe come from poverty. They don't have access to, or they don't want to go to school. They're in alt programs, perhaps. They don't have access to extracurricular activities or whatnot. So you get both spectrums, right? So it's all about looking at what are the risk factors, right? So you could have this family here that's, well off, well-to-do, but what's going on in the home? When you start to look deeper into what's going on in the home, you may realize that, hey, there's some addiction. Maybe there's some family violence. Maybe there's, issues between the parents that left a lot of trauma for the young people and for the kids. Maybe there's issues around acceptance and in the family where the kids don't feel accepted and loved, right? And whereas you have a totally opposite situation, but there could be other risk factors that put this person to lifestyle. It could be poverty, it could be addiction, personal addiction. And so there really is no model when it comes to, hey, if you fit this criteria, okay, you're gonna get involved in the gang life. That's not how it works, unfortunately. And this is why it's so important that when we're working with individuals, that we look at the bigger picture. We look at what's going on, what's unique to their situation, and their circumstances to be able to then provide them with the support to address some of those concerns. And, interestingly, like when we look at the data that comes out of our risk assessment tool, almost every single one of our clients score high on childhood trauma.
Yeah.
So, when you look at things
Yes.
like physical abuse or witnessing family violence or experiencing physical abuse or experiencing sexual abuse, that's way up there. And, when we looked at some of the gender differences, it was really interesting because almost all of the girls in our program were victims of sexual abuse in their childhood. Whereas the young men in our program, they had some type of mental health issues that they were dealing with, whether it's depression, anxiety, or even learning disabilities that put them high at risk. So there definitely are some outlying issues. Another huge one is a parental addiction. When there's a parent, whether it's both the parents or one parent in the household that struggles with addiction, that also has a huge impact. I'm not saying that, if you have a parent with addictions, you're going to end up in the gang lifestyle. No. If you don't have some of those resiliency factors, perhaps, that could heighten your risk. And so that's why it's really important that we make sure that the right supports are in place to help these individuals.
And I note too, we are seeing a lot more mental health.
Yeah.
I don't think we have a client that does not experience anxiety, and not just casual anxiety, but high anxiety.
Yeah.
There's more and more of it, multi-generational, and we're learning. There's more research, and one of our case managers is a clinical
Counselor.
Yeah. And she has also shared training with us. And one of the things that we found interesting was the multi-generational trauma and how it's passed down.
Yeah.
And it's real.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something where a lot of the younger people may not understand why they're doing or have those feelings. They can't put a finger on it, or may not have experienced something directly for themselves, but it's they can come from grandparents, parents, down through the genes to them.
Okay.
And they're just not aware of that.
Yeah. I feel strongly, as somebody who also works with people in the community, that it's just so important to get the message out that anybody, like anyone can be targeted for this lifestyle, and that it's not, you can't say to yourself, that's not going to happen to me.
Yeah.
Correct.
That's something I really think would be important for the girls who are listening to this to hear, is that it's not just those girls that it's going to happen to. It could be you, and you may not even know it.
Yeah, and I would consider that a risk factor. If you say, "Oh, that can't happen to me," that would make you more vulnerable.
Yeah.
Because you may not be looking at it through an open lens. It just, your mind's made up, and that's as simple as that. Versus, you know what? I don't think it could happen to me. I'm aware of some of the dangers and the pitfalls to what to look for, to look out for. That to me would be resilience.
Yeah.
But if they are adamant and closed about that, that would be concerning for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks. So just to start wrapping it up, from a personal perspective for each of you, looking for the safety tips or any empowering messages that you would have for girls in the community. Remembering that this broadcast is going to reach all sorts of different economic groups, and we're trying to encompass as many different girls as we can in the community and educate them today about the realities. What would be your personal messages to these girls today?
I can start if you want to think about it. Yeah.
Oh, I've got so many. Please
Okay.
do.
Well, I think number one, this event and this talk is already starting it for them. Now once you've watched this video, you're going to have that knowledge, and knowledge is power, right?
Yes.
Knowing that, hey, this could happen to me. These are some of the things I need to look out for. And perhaps, these are some resources that I could reach out to if I think that, I might be lured. You're already a step ahead of the game. I think, the girls that are watching this video are struggling in some way or another. And I think it's really important that if you are struggling, know that things will be okay, but also to take the steps to get yourself to a better space. So access those supports that are available to you in your community, access those programs because they are there for you. There has been money pumped into local community agencies so that people can help you with whatever it is that you're going through. And there are people that care. Like Janet and I are in this profession because this is like we care. This is not just our livelihood, but we want to see people succeed. There's been far too many lives lost due to gang violence, and it's not right. And like you've probably seen on the news, people who are victims of gang violence are getting younger and younger, and we don't want to or need to lose another young person or anybody to gang violence ever again. But it is a sad reality. And, so as you leave today, just know that there is help out there for you, and, use the knowledge that you've learned today. Like Janet said, if you get invited to a party or if someone is all of a sudden taking a liking to you, think about it. Why? Why is this person all of a sudden being super nice to me and giving me all this stuff and inviting me to all these different parties and places? If you have this gut feeling that's telling you that, hey, something's up, trust your gut feeling, go with it, and maybe start to disengage from that person or that group of people. Because oftentimes our gut doesn't lie. And like I said, our contact information will be provided to all of you. If you ever just want to talk, if you ever just want to share your story, be anonymous, we are here to listen. And also take advantage of the people in your support circle. They all are there to help you and to see that you move your life into a more positive, healthy, pro-social manner.
Awesome.
For me, I don't know, girls out there, how many of you like to be told what to do? I, for one, as a teenage girl, really got annoyed. And it drove me nuts. And the thing that you guys need to remember is that it's your mind and your body. You're the one in control. Take control back.
Yeah.
You have the right to say no to these people. And if they don't want to take no for an answer, leave. Walk away. You are your number one advocate for staying safe and staying out of trouble. Take care of you first, because no matter what anybody else says, you are the one that's going to do it first. And it's so important to take that control back. And you have it. Don't give it to somebody else. It's yours to give away. So don't.
Yeah.
I'm very passionate about that.
Yes. No, and it is true. And I think it's true for all sorts of different aspects of life as a woman or as a girl navigating growing up and being in the community. Like, that message is so important for so many different aspects. You are in control. You can say no. Nobody can tell you what to do. Well, they can try.
They can try.
And your parents can.
You know what, Annie, I say it's the people can tell you what to do when it's not healthy for you. That's the key, because there's going to be people in your lives, girls, that are going to share things and tell you what to do that are healthy for you.
Yes.
And those are your supports. Those are the people you should be reaching out to connect with. There is nothing wrong with reaching out for support. In fact, we talk about that being a strength. It is not a weakness. It is a strength to understand that there's some help you need and that you can't do it alone. That is a strength.
Yeah.
Recognize it as a strength, not a weakness.
Yes. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I really want to thank both of you for being here today and speaking about what gang life looks like and how girls are being targeted and drawn into that lifestyle. And, we are going to make sure that we have all your information available for anybody who's watching this. And it's awesome. I just want to say a big thank you. Really
Thank you.
great having you here today.
Yeah, thanks for having
Thank
us.
you so much for having us and letting us share
Mhm.
our passion.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.